Hey guys, Larry here, and I have an entry-level digital SLT camera with a nice zoom lens from Sony that takes the place of their entry-level A35. It's the Sony Alpha SLT-A37. Now, I would consider this a digital SLR style camera, but because it has a semi-translucent mirror that never flips out of the way while shooting or filming, it's technically a digital SLT, and your viewfinder is electronic. Sony has championed this technology because it allows for really fast and constant phase detection autofocus that works during fast burst shooting or even during video capture. That means you'll have some capabilities that other similarly priced competitors won't be able to match. When it comes to the spec sheet basics, Sony's A37 has a respectable 16.1 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor, an electronic viewfinder with 1.44 million dot resolution, a tilting LCD, and some solid HD 1080p video capabilities. It does as well in low light as most any camera in this price range, with an ISO from 100 up to 16,000 in expanded mode, and the mode dial has all the traditional pro settings like program, aperture, shutter, and manual priorities, along with Sony's intelligent auto and superior auto modes. The A37 body has a nice deep grip, and when you're holding it, the control buttons and dials are all easily reachable. So while the body is on the small end for a digital SLR style camera, it's not too small. And the 18 to 135 millimeter kit lens that I have here kind of surprised me when I initially tried to zoom it. It was so stiff I thought it was kind of locked in place, and then I flipped the lock switch a couple of times and it broke free. Once I got it out of the 18 millimeter position though, the zoom travel felt nice, and there's a quality feel to this camera and lens combo. It feels better than some other cameras in this price range. As I mentioned earlier, the single translucent mirror allows for rapid phase detection autofocus. But let me tell you a little bit more about the autofocus. It has 15 points, and you can choose whether you want multi-area, single point selective, or continuous autofocus. And it even has face detection, so capturing pictures of people in focus is a little bit easier. One of the cool features engineers have been able to incorporate into focusing systems which use some sort of LCD, like live view or an electronic viewfinder, and as I mentioned, this camera has both, is something called focus peaking. As you look at your image and adjust your focus manually, the electronic viewfinder, or the LCD, amplifies the amount of contrast in edges in your focus area. So it's more obvious when things are in focus, when they're out of focus, or even when they're coming close to focus. It's understandable why this kind of feature is attractive to videographers who want to have manual focus control during filming. Now, when it comes to image quality, the images are color accurate, and the JPEG images will make consumers happy. With RAW files, I noticed a little more color and digital noise than I expected in some daylight shots I took, as well as some chromatic aberration at both ends of the zoom range of this lens. But the in-camera JPEG processing handles both those issues pretty well, and the Adobe Camera Raw image processor does an even better job nearly curing those issues outright. Really though, most of my images were fine, and I think amateurs and pros alike will be able to get images that'll make them happy. Now, the A37 has the ability to automatically focus while filming, but only in program mode. That may be great for beginners, but video professionals who want a little more control over aperture or shutter speed during filming will need to focus manually. That's why I really appreciate that focus peaking feature I talked about earlier, since it makes manual focusing so much easier. Now, while we're on the topic of capturing good video, let me mention that this camera captures 1080p at 24 frames per second, or 1080i 60. The onboard stereo microphones capture respectable audio, but it's hard to take any camera seriously for video capture unless it has a microphone jack. Good news? The A37 does. And yet another nice feature for quality video capture is the tilting LCD screen. While I would use a feature like that occasionally for capturing stills in live view mode, I find that tilting LCD screens like this are much more important when you're doing video capture. I just want to take a minute and tell you what to expect from the electronic viewfinder. In sunshine, the image seemed to be a little bit too contrasty for my taste. For example, I shot an image, and in playback mode it looked much better and less contrasty than the EVF live view of the exact same thing. Another thing that takes a little getting used to is that there's a slight lag before the electronic viewfinder turns on whenever you put the camera to your eye. Also, the electronic viewfinder always mimics whatever would normally be on the LCD at the time. That means if you have a 2-second image review turned on, every time you click the shutter, your image will remain visible in the EVF for 2 seconds or until you press the shutter button halfway down. Now, I love image review on an LCD screen, but I never want image review in my EVF, so I just turn that feature off altogether whenever I use a camera that has an EVF. Ultimately, though, these are a few small idiosyncrasies of the translucent mirror technology, and Sony is betting that on balance, people will love the fast focus and 7 frame per second burst mode with constant focus. There are a couple of cutting-edge features Sony has included in this camera that separate it from the competition. As I mentioned, you can shoot 7 frames per second in a speed mode which crops your image to 8.4 megapixels, or 5.5 frames per second in a burst mode that's full frame. Another cool thing Sony has included is clear image digital zooming. Now, normal digital zooming has been around for years, and I always make sure I turn it off because it degrades the quality of the image too much. But Sony has some interesting algorithms they've included with their clear image zoom technology, which interpolate image detail. So you get as much as a 2x digital zoom over and above the optical zoom that's still very good quality. One more leading edge feature of the A37 is called auto portrait framing. Whenever you take a picture of a person with this enabled, your camera will crop it artistically so that you magically take better pictures of people. And the really cool thing is that you get those better cropped versions, and it keeps the original that you shot as well. I think the Sony Alpha SLT-A37 is built right for the entry-level DSLR market, and if you're looking for an entry-level camera like this with good quality video and still capability, a sturdy, wide-ranging zoom lens, and a great burst rate as well as a good price, the A37 deserves your consideration. With the Sony SLT-A37, I'm Larry Becker. Thanks for watching.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.